right. Happy Friday morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Reber with ERA Heavener Realty, and here to have a conversation with the founder of the St. Augustine Law Group, Rich Brooks, whom I have done business with before and loved working with him and loved it so much that I thought I would have a quick conversation with him here about. So first off, welcome, Rich. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. And
Yeah.
went
And
and
so
waived your attorney-client privilege, so we're good on that. So.
Oh, there we go. I don't think I have anything that's worth an attorney-client privilege share anyway. So, man, no harm, no foul.
Sure.
And one of the things that Rich and I happen to be having a conversation about recently was entity structure for buying investment properties. And with the hot real estate market, both Rich and I have been having conversations with investors and potential investors about how do you do this? Do I need an LLC in Delaware? I need living trusts and estate planning and, the list goes on and on and on. And so I thought I'd just get an expert opinion on the matter for a few minutes here that hopefully will be helpful for you if either you are thinking about buying investment properties or someone you know is, or if this is just cool information to have at your next dinner party, that's valuable too. So, Rich, give us a quick overview on like the conversations that you're having these days. What's good? What's bad? What's overkill? What's not enough? The real estate investing entity structure 101 in a few minutes here, if you will.
Yeah, I'll do my best to keep it short. The first thing I have to do, just because I have a license to protect, is give the caveat that, hey, this is not direct legal advice. Every situation is unique and different, and your situation may be different. And what we're going to talk about is really high level stuff. And in order to really know what you need, seek out the advice of a professional, whether it's me or somebody else. It really doesn't matter, but it's worth the consultation fee. But generally speaking, a fun story I can tell right off the bat is I once had a client call my office, schedule a consultation. We spoke over the phone, and he wanted me to form an offshore LLC in the Caribbean at it's a country called Nevis, and to hold the title and operate the business for his very first and only property, which was a duplex in, I believe it was Flagler County. And then I had to spend the next few hours just explaining to him why this was a bad idea. And the short answer to save you that time is most people don't need that. The reality of it is most people can get away with something much, much simpler. And the two things that you really want to look at are what many would call internal risk versus external risk. Mm-hmm. So external risk has to do with everything outside of the operation of the business. You're driving around in your personal car and get into a car accident. You otherwise do something illegal on the outside and are either sued by a private person or charged by the government or something along those lines. That's external risk. Internal risk has to do with what happens in the operation of a business. So you're renting the house, somebody slips and falls in the house, attempts to hold you responsible. That would occur within the operation of the business regardless. Right. So those are the two types of risk that we're most often attempting to mitigate.
Got it. And so with those two types of risk, at what point do you generally tell people, hey, now you need to be thinking about entities as opposed to purely insurance? What's a good balance there? If I own one rental property, do I need an LLC? If I own 10, do I need individual LLCs for every one? And again, not legal advice, but at what point does somebody start to say, hey, I need to call Rich? Is it before the first one, after the first one, after the 10th one? When do we start thinking about that phone call to an attorney?
The short answer is that it can occur at any time, and there are things that are valuable about starting off earlier rather than later. In other words, making your call. In fact, after this video, I have a consult with a person that's buying their very first investment property, and we're having a conversation about what comes next. And could probably just have them watch this video. But at the end of the day, starting earlier will likely save you money in the long term because you can begin planning ahead. What I would say is, no matter what, if you're buying an investment property, there's not a lot of harm in putting that first property in an LLC. If for no other reason, then it does open up some tax treatment that you can take advantage of, as well as it can create a very basic internal liability shield. Again, going back to that internal external risk for that one property. Again, that can be a Florida LLC. It can be owned by one or more people. In terms of getting really down into the weeds, most people, if you have one investment property, even 2 or 3 investment properties, most of the time you can get away with that single LLC, and just make sure that you've got proper insurance. But again, the things change if we're talking about my one property is now a 47-door multi-tenant apartment complex, and my second property is a 100-tenant complex. The calculus completely changes. But if we're just talking about single family in a neighborhood, it never hurts to put your first one in an LLC.
And one of the things you mentioned, tax treatment for an LLC, I'll mention the flip side of that is that if you own properties in your personal name, the real estate tax assessed value that you have been paying taxes on for years gone by, were you to suddenly move those properties from your personal name to an entity, the county will see that as a sale and reassess your tax value, and likely, if you've owned these properties for any number of years, raise your tax value. We've had that happen before, and it was a little bit of a surprise bill that came due whenever the real estate taxes came out. And I guess you get a proposed value in August and your actual bill in November. And the owner that had that happen was not thrilled about it. So be careful if you're moving things around. Go talk to somebody that knows entity structures first, and they may say, you may want to think through that fully and completely. And then the other thing I was going to ask in regards to that, Rich, was let's talk about cost. The cost for filing an entity, the cost for you helping set it up, and again, can be generic. You could answer generically for an attorney doing this, not the what does it cost me to go on LegalZoom and get an entity together for buying houses or houses that I already own, but you're going to seek out the help of a professional attorney that's looking into the nitty-gritty details of your individual situation. This is going to cost me something, but it's also going to save me something. So I'm trying to draw the return on investment comparison here. What's my cost versus what's my risk and downside if I don't do this? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. So I would say that no matter what, no matter who you're hiring, generally speaking, you should expect that you're looking at some amount less than $1,000, inclusive of legal fees and filing fees with the state of Florida to form your first LLC, to kind of take your very first steps toward becoming a real estate investor and understanding the process. And what's included and wrapped into that number is the actual formation itself, as well as likely an hour or two of just Q&A and understanding the different options and planning ahead. So for some people, it could be very inexpensive, say between $300 and $500 just for an entity formation. But I get some people who are intent on owning multiple properties right away as soon as possible, and talking them through a plan to accomplish that effectively. And so, yeah, certainly an amount less than $1,000.
Okay, cool. And one of the things, again, that I'll mention to anyone watching that's facing this issue in their lives, whether you're just setting out to buy investment property or already own some, is that when you go to get homeowners insurance for a property that you own in an LLC, it is different than if you were to get that same policy for a property you own in your own name. So this is probably multiple phone calls, attorney, insurance company, and accountant to say, what's going on here? What should I, well, and maybe real estate broker as well, but what should I be thinking about? And then once you look at all the costs and you kind of figure out what your downside is if you don't do this the right way, which can be very big, having been in the real estate property management and brokerage business for a long time, if you don't do things right and that something goes wrong, that downside risk is big. So make sure you do them the right way. And so, yeah, make those phone calls first. And I don't want to take up too much of your time this morning, Rich. I know you've got other stuff on your calendar. Any parting thoughts before we wrap it up here?
My parting thoughts would be this, and I'll say this just because these are things I say or find myself saying to a lot of clients. First and foremost, do not shirk on due diligence. I don't care if you're buying a house that's in your neighborhood that you live and you think you know everything about it. Do your inspections, get a survey, make sure that you understand all of the boundary lines and do all the things, because I've had multiple occasions where folks have come to me months after a transaction and, oh, I didn't realize that most of my backyard would flood in a really hard rain, or I didn't realize that part of my property was designated in a flood zone, so my insurance was going to be much higher, or I didn't realize that there was damage, foundational damage. And then I have to ask, well, did you do your inspection? Did you hire someone to do a survey? Well, no, because I was paying cash and I didn't have to. So
the old handshake deal doesn't always work out the way you want it to.
Exactly. So do your due diligence regardless, just because it's worth it. Even if you find absolutely nothing, it's worth it in the end to just know you have the peace of mind. And then the second thing is, don't be afraid to admit what you don't know. That's just good life advice. And I tell my clients all the time, hey, if I don't know the answer to what you're asking, I will tell you I don't know, and I will find the answer and get it for you. And that's usually the best way to avoid making costly mistakes.
Yep.
Because in today's world, the internet is both awesome and terrible. Awesome in the sense that everything is available to you, including conversations like the one we're having right now. But terrible because people can rely on it as the gospel truth to live by, but it doesn't specifically apply to their circumstances, and then they find themselves in trouble later. So
like when I have a pain in my side and I Google what could that pain be, could be a stomachache, could be something that's going to kill me tomorrow, and the range in between is varied and different. So this applies here as well. You're right.
100%. So those are my two big things to take away from today. And whether that's you're buying real estate, starting a business, or really doing anything else, if you're willing to admit you don't know and you're willing to become educated on the subject, it tends to go a long way.
That's good advice on a Friday and any other day of the week. So if somebody does want to reach out to you, Rich, where should they find your phone, or what is that phone number that they could call you guys on?
Yeah, of course. 904-990-7777, StAugustine.com. My assistant, Julia, is super friendly. Everybody likes her, and she'll get you on my calendar in the event that I'm unavailable to talk at the time. But yeah.
Well, Rich, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to chat this morning, and hopefully those watching will reach out. And if you Google the St. Augustine Law Group, you can find all of the information that he just said there as well. Again, I'm Jeff Reber with ERA Heavener Realty. Appreciate your time. And if you've got any real estate questions, thoughts, concerns, you can give me a shout. 904-405-1995. We'll catch up soon.